Here, Rafano. We're gonna start today reworking this old orchard that we inherited with some old deciduous fruit trees. And we started already using these flame trees that we put in something like 10-12 years ago on a contour line, and we had since used to put some logs against it. But now, as we had to clean some roadsides after some bulldozer work redoing the road, we got all this gravelly topsoil that got pushed in the drains we had to pick out, so we thought we filled it up on the terraces, getting ready for our makeover, huh? So Frida, I had a look at this plum tree here. That's what we call here the Christmas plum. It makes plums just at Christmas, one of the first plums, and it has been really good over the years. We inherited that. So that's probably something like at least 20-25 years old. And last year it really looked sad. It died back, half of the tree. It's just getting too old, and it probably starts splitting in the center. Maybe it comes back to life if we give it a really good stackhorn, or it might just die. But it will die if we don't do anything, that's for sure. So when we get that guy out and we use all of those big limbs to add onto the terraces, and then we could put another terrace over there, maybe one in the middle still. Use the roadside soil as a base, and then put some compost on, put some annuals in, and we have all this light coming in. We will pollard the flame trees then.
Yeah. So give it all a huge reset.
Totally, yeah. And maybe the plum branches, the thinner stuff, we put through the chipper, because it's always a bit awkward to handle as mulch.
Because usually we don't chip things because we want that length of wood to even out, distribute our, our weight. But with these, because they're so awkward, it would be best to chip them and then have them as mulch.
That's right. And the other thing here is having then 3 terraces with proper pathways. We are sweet with compaction anyway. We can just use the pathways then. And we still have the flame tree branches that we put on. Yeah.
Cool. And just to give some context to this place, so this triangle was always a bit of a forgotten area, a little bit. It was quite lots of kaikuyu under here, and it's our temperate zone.
So much kaikuyu, my God.
Like almost this size. And yeah, it's our temperate zone, so we do get a bit of frost in here, so that's why we've got these plums and a few apples and peaches. Oh, not peaches. Damsons in here. But basically what's missing is the sort of understory density, because we do still have this kaikuyu. It's a lot less than it used to be with the help of all these flame trees and the banana grass that we've got in places.
Actually,
and the work.
It's almost gone.
It's pretty much gone. But just to keep that away and to really capture all that sunlight, so it's not just on the ground here, we want to come in and plant a whole lot of other things. So yeah, like you said, do a big reset, give it a good haircut, and then come in with a whole load of other trees, eh?
Yeah, some evergreens we're missing here.
Yeah, evergreen. So what would you say, like citrus?
The citrus that we have sitting around, yeah, let's put that in. And also some deciduous to replace the plum tree. Maybe the chestnuts, 1 or 2 can go in here.
So keeping still that deciduous, like why would you say more deciduous plants in here?
Well, as an emergent.
Yeah.
And then in winter the sun is coming in onto citrus, and in summer when it's really hot in here, then they have a bit of a shade. So we play the both worlds.
So as a rundown, we've got a cherimoya here, which is the only tree that we will leave unpruned because it's just coming into harvest now. So we won't prune that until all the cherimoyas have been harvested. And then we've got an inga bean there that's doing nicely, and a loquat here that unfortunately has been attacked by a puriri moth. So we'll give that a good trim up as well, a reset right back. Then we've got a fig tree here, which we'll leave, but we'll trim back the flame tree that's with it as a support species. And here we have a purikawa, which will give a light prune as well, and also inoculate the the branches that we do prune with shiitake mushrooms, just giving it a bit of a haircut as well. Here we've got the beginning of the terrace that's recently been made with a whole lot of uke branches from another space in the food forest laid against flame trees and other trees in the system, and then backfilled with the earth dug into it, as well as some gravelly sediment as well. We've also got a whole border of harakeka here as well, which will just trim up the outer leaves, but for the most part keeping it intact. We've got a deciduous plum tree here, which we might give just a light prune, as you do plum trees. Then we've got little strands of flame tree coming up, which we'll just give a light haircut to. And then these flame trees here that are marking our contour line nicely, we'll give them a proper pollard. Usually we only leave one whip above, but this time we're going to set it right back and give it a nice pollard, so where you see the branches, all the whips all extending out, we're going to cut it just underneath that, just one big pole to really let that sun in. So in this terrace here is where we're going to be planting the chestnuts and the citrus trees, and these are all the sacks of all the gravelly sediment that has been collected. And yeah, more flame trees here that will reset. Recently we have actually done a reset here, so you can see the banana grass that we've got in the system as well has recently had a haircut, but we will still go through and get a lot of those brown leaves and all that out of the way, so it can carry on growing unchoked by its own vegetation. Here we've got a Japanese raisin tree that's pioneering high into the sky. That one doesn't need any maintenance, it's a self-pruning tree, so it's just doing its thing, heading up into the emergent canopy. Here we've got another mass of quite messy flame trees, which we'll be giving a good haircut to, again returning all those leaves and branches back into the ground as terrace systems and mulch. And yeah, this marks the border of this section, so making my way around again, seeing things from a different angle. So the way we're going to go about this is first start with the lower areas, so really making sure all the grasses, the nasturtiums, the banana grass is all nicely pruned back before we smother it with the branches and flame trees that we get from above. So first you want to start from the ground up, so we're going to come in, cut all the grasses, give that a nice trim, and then make our way up the different layers of the canopy, giving all a massive haircut, letting all that sun come in and giving it all a big reset, setting all those hormones on fire. Cool. So as I explained, first off, stage one is cutting back all the grasses, the undergrowth underneath, and even though we could do it with a weed whacker, we do prefer doing it by hand with machetes or sickles, especially in an area like this where we've got a lot of things that have been planted and are coming up wild. Like for example, we've got a kawa seedling coming up here, which had we gone with a weed eater, we might have missed that. So yeah, even though it's a little bit more laborious, you do get the technique pretty fast with a machete. But yeah, anyway, stage one, getting that underground cover cut so that when we start going up to the next layer of the food forest, we're not squashing those grasses with the branches of this. You want everything to have a nice clean haircut, a reset, and not sort of stagnating and sort of suffering with smothered leaves. So yeah, now stage two, moving up the layers, we're going to start cutting back these guys. So we're going to pollard them like I mentioned. So where you see the whips coming up, we're going to pollard them there. And then all those branches we're going to lay on contour on these terraces, allowing again to catch all the runoff and the nutrients from the terraces there, and then also all the leaves we're going to use as mulch on top of this area here. Quite high nitrogen, so again it's a nice input of nitrogen into the soil. So whenever you're cutting any branches with any significant amount of weight, you always do a good undercut so that when the branch comes down, it doesn't peel all the way down the trunk. comes clean off just like that. So as you can see, we've pollarded all the poles, so that was stage 2, and now all the branches that were up there have now gone down, and it's a matter of now processing them with a machete onto these terraces, covering that soil. And the reason why we keep them whole and do it with a machete instead of a chipper is that logs that are on the ground like this you can then stand on, and it distributes your weight nicely, and it also encourages the fungal networks to take over that system because they like sort of long woody material to propagate on versus lots of little wood chip that goes more into sort of a bacterial mold breakdown. So yeah, 2 main reasons why we like doing things with a machete, and again obviously you can just be a little bit more precise and aware of what's in your surroundings. So with flame trees in particular, obviously disclaimer, we only advise that you do them if you are going to be in the place that you plant them for a long time and you have a succession plan and you're there to really maintain them, otherwise they can get out of hand. However, if you will maintain them vigorously like we do by this sort of management, keeping them constantly pruned, you can use them as a really valuable member of your food forest that really drives the system along. So, but because it is highly able to propagate from just small pieces of wood, and obviously the thicker pieces of wood, the more it's going to have energy to sprout from, we then want to, contrary to other ways of treating other materials, we want to actually in this case lay the leafy matter first on top of the soil, and then have the woody material sitting on top so that there's no soil contact, so it can't take root, so it dries out before it can take root. That's opposite to what you might do with branches that don't take root easily, in which case you actually want the woody material below the leafy matter so that it doesn't dry out and it actually breaks down. So yeah, in this case we're doing the opposite, and how it looks like is first, so shaving downwards, holding the branch away from you, chopping away from you so you don't get hurt, so laying it down, scratching all the branches off or the leaves off first, and then we can lie down our thicker material like that, and as you see then we can sort of stand on that, and that's distributing our weight nicely. So that's what we've done all along here, and so yeah, that's stage 2. Now we're going to move on to our plum tree, which in this case, because it is really gnarly and really hard wood, we don't really want to use the machete, it's going to wear us out, and also our machetes. We're going to chip in that case and have the chips on top of here. So it's the end of the day now, so we're just finishing up by digging a whole bunch of holes for the now citruses and chestnuts and planting them in to these terrace rows. So we've got a whole lot of sacks of compost and sand and biochar that we're using to incorporate into the soil. So you see we've used all the branches of the plum tree as sort of terrace walls for the terraces that we've been making, and then all these branches are yet to be chipped. We've dug up all the terraces and now putting lime chip along the pathways that we've dug out, and Sean's just digging out the pathway for the other terrace. So basically these pathways mean that we have defined areas where we walk on, meaning we don't compact the terraces and the soil so much, and also putting the lime chip on there helps against compaction and also adds a nice natural fertilizer as well with the lime. So this is all the compost from our deep litter chicken system that we've put on here just to give it a bit of a kickstart, get the system going. And now we've planted in all the citruses, the faux, the sugarcane, the banana grass, raisin trees and the chestnuts. And now we're going to come in with a consortium of seeds, chicory, turnip, black oats, fodder peas, buckwheat and black oats. So some of them we're going to matraca in so they're in patches, and others we're going to broadcast mainly as a green manure, but the turnip and the fodder peas we can eat as well. We're going to come in with some annuals of either beetroots or kale, we haven't quite decided yet, and also perennial pie melon, which is going to offer that lower level strata for the system, sort of creeping along the understory, offering these big protein rich melons that we also eat and also boil up for the chickens. So yeah, just in this small area, it's amazing how dense you can go with trees when you understand the strata and the different niche and life cycles that they occupy. And then small space, there's a lot of food coming out of that, both for ourselves and also for the wildlife and all the soil life as well.